Hi, my name is Kathleen Riordan. I live here at Smith Mountain Lake, and I wanted to show you how I got my push or start into quilting when I retired from IBM about 2 years ago. So I used to sew a lot when I was much younger, never sewed at all when I was raising my three sons, and so it was fun to get back into it, and I really liked quilting because of the shapes and designs. So let's take a look at the basic materials and fabrics. Starting out here, I've got a cutting board that has all the inches marked off. And when you're cutting out fabric, you put your fabric on this, and then you lay a ruler over your fabric and use a rotary cutting tool to cut the fabric. All works pretty easily. I still have my fingers, no band-aids. Life is good. So some of the fabric choices when you do quilting, when you're just starting out, pre-cut fabrics are very nice and easy to use. And I've got a couple examples of those here. This curly Q roll is called a jelly roll. And it's actually 42 strips, 2.5 inches wide, rolled up, of lots of different complementary fabrics. These are examples here of a jelly roll strip. And you can use these whole, you can cut them into rectangles or squares, whatever fits your design. And I'll show you some examples of what I've done with jelly rolls. Another type of pre-cut is called charm pack. Now a charm pack is a 5 by 5 inch square, and they also come in packages of complementary fabrics. You can see these are all polka dotted fabrics, and it relieves you from having to cut all those 5-inch squares and gives you, a kind of fanciful set of choices to choose from. And I'll show you a quilt that I've done with charm squares. A little bit more fabric bundles is called fat quarters. So this is a fat quarter package of 14 different quarter yard strips of fabric. I have yet to decide what I'm going to make out of these. It's kind of simmering right now, but it's fun to have some graphic designs in different colors. And again, I don't have to go and ask for a quarter of a yard of lots of different fabrics. It's already packaged up for me. So that's kind of the basic tool set for beginner quilters. You can choose different types of fabric pre-cuts to use and get you off to a quick start. So when I started quilting, I didn't want to make big quilts. I didn't want to do repetitive squares of the same thing. So I started out making pillows because then I could choose my own pattern, choose my own fabrics, and kind of just experiment around. So these are examples of some of the first pillows I made. And in addition to sewing the fabrics together, which is called piecing, when you sew these together, you also need to quilt. And quilting is a process where you put a backing and a batting, and you have 3 layers, and then you put a design to actually quilt everything together. So this quilting I did myself on my machine. You can see it's pretty basic, just straight lines. But it's easy to do small pieces of quilting on a machine, a personal machine. It's another pillow I did there. My nieces call this the skyscraper pattern. So after I started out with pillows, I moved on and I used a jelly roll to make a baby quilt. Let me move over here. So this is what I did with jelly rolls. The jelly roll was the 2.5 by 42 inch strip. So I sewed all the strips together in a little gradation of colors that I liked. And then to make this quilt, you just kind of cut off several inches of that and flip it upside down. So this is called a strip and flip quilt. Very easy to do, fun to do, great baby quilt. Another example of a quilt I did using a jelly roll, a larger quilt, is this quilt, which the pattern name is called Type It. Looks like a bunch of keystrokes. And I used those 2.5 by 42 inch jelly roll strips. Again, laid them out in a color gradation that I liked. And you basically just kind of randomly snip them in the middle and sew a piece of white fabric and then sew all those strips together. I want to show you on this one some of the quilting that was done. On these larger quilts, typically the person that pieces the quilt, which is me, will take it to a long arm quilter, and they will have a big frame, put the quilt out on the big frame, and do the actual quilting. And I have used a lady up in Bedford to do my long arm quilting at Wind Creasy Fiber Arts, and she is just fabulous. You can see all these different designs. All right, so those are two examples with jelly rolls. Let me show you what I did with charm squares. Let me swing over here. And this is a quilt that I put together with those 5-inch squares called charm squares. Now, this pattern is called Scattered. It's very easy. I just took a packet of very colorful squares and some very light colored squares and put the design together. Very, very easy. Square, 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 square. Don't have to worry about curves or circles or anything like that. Now this fabric that I chose, you can see there's lots of starbursts in them, both in the dark colored fabric and the light colored fabric. And so when it was quilted, we tried to, actually there's an example, put some stars in the quilting. So this is kind of my star quilt. I've done a couple of versions of this quilt. It's really, pretty contemporary, modern, well liked. All right, the last example I'm going to show you is over here. I hung it from my stairwell. Call this my cloudy quilt. This is a quilt I did with just small rectangles that I cut out from scraps and arranged them in kind of a cloudy, stormy, blue sky abstract layout. You got to think outside of the box, I guess, when you're looking at this quilt. But there was no pattern. I just kind of made it up, and I love it. It looks nice, I think, and didn't have to follow any complicated sewing instructions. So I hope you enjoyed this little glimpse into my beginning quilting life, and I hope you look into it someday. Thank you.